So a lot of people ask me what the difference is between a counsellor, a psychologist, and a psychiatrist. So I thought I'd put together a short summary. It's not going to cover everything because it's quite a complicated area. But let's start with what is counselling. Now, counselling can be lots of different things to different people. And the people who provide a counselling service can do it in lots of very different ways. But for now, what I'm going to call counselling is when you sit down with someone and you talk about your thoughts, you talk about your feelings, and together you come up with ideas that can make life feel a bit better for you. These sessions usually take about an hour of time. So this is quite different from when you go to see your GP and it's a short session, maybe 15 minutes or less. Counselling takes a bit longer, about an hour, and you can talk in depth about your life. You might want to change a bad habit like smoking or drinking. You might want to talk about something sad or something difficult in your life. Maybe someone's died. Maybe someone has lost their job. You might want to talk about an abrupt change in life. Other things that you might want to talk about could be improving your relationships, becoming better at communication, or learning about things like maybe depression, stress, anxiety. You might want to learn how to be a better parent or a better partner. Or you might want to talk about things that are directly related to being deaf or hard of hearing. Now, counselling and talk therapy can help with all of these things. I'm going to call it talk therapy because this is where you and the professional sit down and you talk about your life. So, who can provide counselling and talking therapy? You can choose to see a counsellor or a psychologist and sometimes even a psychiatrist, but not your GP. The GP is really for short appointments. The GP can help you decide if you need a counsellor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but generally the GP appointments are small. So I'm going to show you a slide that just shows you the difference between who provides talking therapy. Okay, so how do you decide who you need to see? Well, that depends on a number of things. If you need a formal assessment and a diagnosis, then you probably need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They can do an assessment and a diagnosis, and that can be used for a court system, the legal system, the Medicare system. It might be helpful for an NDIS funding package, or maybe you need it for school funding to help with some extra help in the classroom. For example, for ADHD or autism or schizophrenia or OCD or bipolar disorder, or if you need to take medication, then you'll need a formal assessment and a diagnosis. In general, a counsellor can't provide a formal assessment or diagnosis for medication or the court system, schools, or anything formal. You'll need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So what's the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist? One of the key things is that a psychiatrist will be able to prescribe medication. But often, after the psychiatrist has met with you, confirmed the diagnosis and decided on that medication, they'll send you back to a psychologist for talking therapy and counselling. So you can work on your thoughts, your feelings and your behaviours in more depth. Your GP can also prescribe medication, like, for example, antidepressant medication. But some medications are specialised and only psychiatrists can prescribe them. The next part I want to cover is about how you can pay to see a counsellor or psychologist or psychiatrist. In Australia, we have a few different types of health insurance. So we have the NDIS, which is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. We have Medicare, and some people have private health insurance as well. So let's start with the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. In Australia, the NDIS can be used to pay for counselling, and it can also be used to pay for psychology, but it can't be used to pay for a psychiatrist or a GP. In most cases, the NDIS will cover the full fee for counselling and psychology. In most cases. Now, what about Medicare? In Australia, Medicare is a public health insurance scheme, and it can be used for a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and a GP, but not for counselling. In most cases, Medicare won't cover the full fee. You will have to pay some of that fee. And you might know this because when you've been to the doctor, you sometimes have to pay that out-of-pocket extra piece of money. So what about private health? Well, now that gets really complicated. You'll need to contact your private health fund to find out if you're covered for psychology or counselling, because all private health funds are different. The last thing I want to cover today is about referrals. If you see a counsellor or a psychologist with the NDIS, you don't need a referral. You can also see your GP without a referral, and you'd know this because you contact them directly when you need an appointment. But you will need a referral and a diagnosis if you use Medicare for a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and that referral needs to be written by your GP. It's pretty complicated, and to make things more difficult, some people will need to use the NDIS for some issues and Medicare for others. It can be really hard to know which insurance scheme is the right one for you. So I'm going to finish up by saying, if you think you need counselling or talk therapy, contact your NDIS support coordinator or your GP, and that's probably the best place to start. If you think your support coordinator or the GP doesn't really understand deafness, then send them to our website and we can provide some information and training to help them be more accessible and deaf-friendly.